Yesterday marks 1 month since Aaron Bushnell self-immolated in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. We remember and honor his sacrifice, his display of principled action and solidarity, and we stand here today dedicated to furthering the cause of the liberation of Palestine in whatever way we can, which means we demand that Binghamton University divest from Israel and the ongoing genocide. And we stand here today alongside other Sunnis in saying we will not stop until BDS is implemented across all schools. We demand the implementation of BDS on campus, which includes an academic boycott, breaking ties with Israeli universities, including study abroad programs. We demand the formation of a Palestinian Studies Department. We demand that Binghamton University divest from military contractors that profit from endless war and massacre, and that the university extends protection to its Arab students in the face of repeated doxing and harassment. Our first speaker is Kenyon from the Binghamton Solidarity for Palestine. Thank you, Kenyon.
Thank you. How y'all doing today? BDS has come to Binghamton. In 2005, Palestinian civil society called for global boycotts, divestments, and sanctions against Israel in response to what was then 57 years of occupation, land theft, and genocide. In the years since, the oppression of Palestinians has only increased as the Israeli government has accelerated its campaign of dispossession through settler violence in the West Bank and mass slaughter in the Gaza Strip. In the last 5 months, Israel has killed over 30,000 Gazans and imposed starvation conditions on 2 million more. Leading scholars and human rights advocates around the globe have rightly identified this as genocide. We too call this genocide, and we assert that Binghamton University is complicit. Binghamton University maintains cultural ties with Israeli institutions that are active in the occupation and holds lucrative contracts with weapons manufacturers. They launder the reputation of the Israeli occupation and they profit from it at the same time. And they seek to silence those of us who speak out against the genocide of Palestinians.
Shame!
Okay. But we will not be silenced. We demand that Binghamton University and its complicity in the occupation and ethnic cleansing of Palestine, and that it enacts measures to ensure the safety and freedom of Arab, Muslim, and anti-Zionist students alike. Binghamton University has repeatedly refused to address the rampant Islamophobia currently plaguing the campus. Dehumanizing rhetoric about Palestinians and Muslims is allowed with virtually no repercussions. While the university claims to care about principles of diversity, inclusion, and community, it is evident that these principles are selectively and discriminatorily applied. To date, there has been no meaningful offer of support from the university to students on campus directly impacted by the ongoing genocide in Palestine. Sorry, y'all. My mic technique is bad. Both historically and during this most recent wave of unprecedented violence and vitriol. Since Binghamton University refuses to extend the bare minimum of support for impacted students while simultaneously standing on the side of oppressive institutions engaged in the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, then we, the people compromising the student body, faculty, and the community at large, have no choice but to take matters into our own hands. As such, we are rallying today in support of Palestinian liberation, student safety and autonomy, and the full divestment of Binghamton University from Israel until the killing stops once and for all. This is why we are here. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Our next speaker is President of Students for Justice in Palestine at Binghamton, Mousa.
Hey everyone, is this good? Good volume? Louder? All right. Hey everyone, I'd like to thank you all for coming out. My name is Mousa. I'm a student at Binghamton University, and there's something important that I came here intending to speak on regarding the relationship between a community and people in positions of authority. When a lot of people rally around a cause that leadership stands firmly against, whether rhetorically or through their actions, They like to pretend to understand us and our suffering, to urge us to stay complacent through their empty comfort. They tell us there's nothing they can do because it's out of their hands while they quietly stand in the face of change and try to keep things the way they are. We've all seen it. The continuous reminders that regardless of what we believe should be the standard for human rights, regardless of what credible evidence we have for the perpetual genocide, regardless of which new heinous, graphic claim of sexual violence happened at the hands of the IDF, it's still not enough to withdraw support from Israel at the most minor level of what these people are capable of.
Shame!
All they've decided to offer are empty words of sympathy. Often, it's surprising when actors we know are implicated in these crimes even give the suffering of Palestinians the time of day. But we know these words are never offered with meaningful action. These people shield their eyes from the countless horrors we've all seen so they can rest easy at night. Not to excuse it, but what do you expect from leaders who are explicitly chosen to protect their profit margins and their networks when a lot of those connections lie with a multi-billion-dollar weapons manufacturing industry? As students and members of the Binghamton community, what we have to think about is where we come in when that comes to be the case. Our job here today, and every day for that matter, is to make sure that those who try to profiteer off of human suffering and mutilation and extermination recognize the communities that they were meant to serve, and recognize that we as a community are not going to let this go on any longer. I think I speak for all of us when I say that the spineless nature of Binghamton University administration's inaction has been cruel, vile, and inhuman, but not surprising. After all, it is more convenient to stay silent than to speak when you know your words have an impact. Now, to end this off, I wanted to read a quote from someone else who also found it more convenient to stay silent than to act in the face of the oppression he witnessed. You may recognize it. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amari from the Yiddish Bund. Yeah.
Hello. I've just got a few words to say. We're the Bund. We're a Jewish group on campus supporting divestment and supporting a ceasefire. Sorry, we're supporting divestment and a ceasefire. Right now, we're working day and night with City Council on a ceasefire resolution that is going to be voted on shortly. I have here QR code to the petition. If y'all would be willing, if you're a student of Binghamton and you live in Binghamton, or even better, if you're a resident of Binghamton, please sign. It makes a huge difference. They need to see community support to be able to do this. This is the biggest, most important thing that can get this passed. Additionally, when it comes to City Council, the business meeting, there will be an opportunity to speak. Everyone who can and is able, please do it. It makes a huge difference. When is it? Almost certainly April 12th, or April 10th April 10th, Wednesday at 6 p.m. It may, unless it's moved back, but that should be when. April 10th, 6 o'clock. All right. Thank you. Free Palestine.
Our next speaker is Rafed Al-Jabouri from the Northeastern Pennsylvania for Palestine.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hello, all. Thank you first for being here, everybody. I do realize that many of us, or it's fair to say most of us, not Palestinians, yet we are here. And we are here because we share a common thing with them, a common tie that cannot be broken. That is a humanity. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with ethnicity. It has nothing to do with any other factor, demographic factor. It's just the sheer humanity of it. How can anybody see all what's happening in the last 172 days and remain silent? As the brother earlier said, ultimately, you're not going to find anybody to speak for you when it hit you if you remain silent. So that is the choice. It's either we speak, we break the violence, we stop the corruption, or be complicit to it and think that is not going to touch us. But rest assured, if it hit Palestine that hard, it's not far-fetched that would hit the United States too. Because the same culprit, the same Zionism entity that is wreaking havoc in the Middle East, in Sudan, in Congo, in Syria, the list goes on and on. I can name for you all the countries right now that Zionist has a hand into the conflict in their countries. The death toll since they lobbied for wars and pushed America into wars that has no business to go in, starting with the 90s, mid-90s, late 90s, until 2001 and 2003, the death toll thus far is several million people in the Middle East alone.
Shame! Shame!
Between Iraq, Syria, Palestine, and other countries, and Yemen. Not forget that. Because how dare Yemen to challenge them? How dare Yemen to stand for the big bully? And everybody stands up for them, of course, called terrorists. Because that's the favorite word, right? Everybody stands for justice, stands for human rights, it stands for civil rights, as they did with Nelson Mandela before, and they called him terrorist. It is not new to this country, to this government, to use such terms against people who are trying actually to get decent human rights for their people. Including back in the 60s, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. When people are occupied, resistance is justified.
When people are occupied, resistance is justified. When people are occupied.
Indeed it is. Israel cannot claim self-defense. There is no such a thing. That self-defense applicable here. As far as international law concerned, occupier is always on the offense. And we are always on the offense. You cannot claim victim. If that's the case, let's say Germany also has the right to self-defense during the times of Nazis. How about we say that? We're going to use the same logic they use. All right. In this case, Russia has the right to defend itself as well. Exactly. So everybody have the right to defend themselves, that is true, but not when you are occupier. Not when you are shedding blood for the last 80 years. More than 700,000 people were displaced and killed in 1948. So that's our October 7th. Started back in the 1948. Israel never existed before then. Some of them come to argue that Israel, the word Israel mentioned in the Quran, in the Torah, in the Bible, because they turn the argument into a religious argument. They want to tie Zionism to Judaism. And you cannot tie them together. Ask the rabbis in Brooklyn. Ask JVP. They don't equate. And they try to make it to protect the Jewish people. They are not. They are actually putting target on the Jewish people, not protecting them, including right here in the United States. Not from us. Not from us. But we do know, Muslims, Arabs in general, are not the ones who are calling, or Palestinians, not the ones who are calling in their videos for death to all. Rather, Zionists are doing that. They are the ones who want to pretty much eliminate everybody and have it all for themselves. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories, and I'm sorry for these stories, because it's going to stay in your head probably, and tell it to other people too. A month ago, a pregnant woman in Khan Yunis was walking as the Israeli Zionist tank ran over her deliberately. It started by running over the upper part. That was not enough. Backed up and ran over her again. And forward again, until the fetus came out of that pregnant woman. Who does that? Who does that? If that is not a criminal, what is? If that is not genocide, what is? You do not have to fire a bullet to commit genocide. The starvation is genocide. This is a systematic starvation. It's not famine. It is systematic starvation. That's what it is. A little 8-year-old girl, I watched her video holding her stomach, crying, sitting on the side of the road. And one of the journalists approached her, why, Ammu, meaning uncle, why are you crying? And she couldn't answer him. She kept crying from the pain until she mustered the word and said, we're hungry. Hunger is a terrible thing. You're lucky that you didn't experience it probably a day in your life. But trust me, a day is too many. Not to mention they've been besieged for the last 176 days. 72 days, I'm sorry, in North Gaza. Babies are dying, infants. The death rate among infants is at least 10-15% only in North Gaza alone. Because there's no formula, and mothers cannot breastfeed their children, their babies. So imagine that. Imagine those are your children. To what length would you go to defend them? To what length would you go to free them from that pain of starvation? In short, what you do for Palestine, it is not just for Palestine. Rather, it is to change the status quo here in the United States. It's to free this country and its citizens from the grip of Zionism on this country that's been holding on to power since World War II and until now. And therefore, we have two of our ladies from Northeast PA. One is running against Casey, Senator Casey, and the other, Leila Hazou, running as Senator for the United States. Again, is Casey. And Salma Ahmed is running against Matt Cartwright in District 8. And we need everybody's support to see it through. And without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Leila. She prepared a speech. Leila Hazou.
Let's hope. Soon. Hi, everyone. It's amazing to see so many kufiyas. Okay, I'm trying. You got to get it really close up there. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about myself in a minute. But first, I kind of want you all to think about why you're here. I'm here because I'm Palestinian. But why are you here? Talking about Palestine is scary. It can lose you friends. It can lose you family. Louder still? Yes. Speaking up for Palestine can get you doxxed, fired, expelled. Speaking up can be dangerous. But why is that? Why is there so much pushback on this topic? I say that it's because Palestine has always been the West's dirty little secret. A great injustice was done to the Palestinians to alleviate the guilt that Western leaders felt over the Holocaust. They sacrificed the freedom and self-determination of a people that had absolutely nothing to do with it. This guilt also seems to have been passed from one leader to the next, year after year, until it's become internalized to the system. So to question this injustice is to question the entire system. To question this great moral flaw that's been so deeply entrenched since World War II is taboo. It's off limits. To keep us silent, they've demonized the victims. The great Edward Said said that to be Palestinian is to be an outlaw. They will even call you a terrorist. But this is the colonizer's word. First, they colonized the land, and then they colonized our minds. They conditioned us to believe that the indigenous people are simply savages, as they've done in every colonization for hundreds of years. So I think you're here because you are decolonizing your minds. You no longer believe that there is any justification for the theft, the suffering, the displacement, the apartheid, and the genocide of any people. I also know and acknowledge how scary it is, and I want to thank you and tell you that you are brave. Bravery isn't doing the right thing when it's safe. It's doing the right thing when it's terrifying. But the alternative for us is even more terrifying, to not say anything, right? So I commend you. And I urge you to keep doing what you're doing. Keep making noise, keep demanding justice. And remember, real heroes don't wear capes. They have FBI files. Now, I want to share my Nakba story with you. We'll be free! To the sea, Palestine will be free! I want to share my Nakba story with you. I'm the daughter of a Palestinian refugee. My family, who are Syriac Orthodox Christians, lived in Al-Quds, or Jerusalem, near the Jewish quarter for generations. My grandfather had a taxi business from his father before him. It was previously a stagecoach business because there weren't cars yet, but then my grandfather made it a taxi business. In the late summer of 1948, our home came under mortar fire. A shell actually fell right next to my great-grandmother as she was out hanging laundry in the backyard. But luckily, it didn't explode. One night shortly after, the house came under heavy machine gun fire. So my grandfather packed everyone up and they fled to Bethlehem. There was no fighting there yet. My father was 7 years old. They would later go back to the house only to find a Jewish family living there. It crushed them. After that, there were many moves, eventually dispersing my family all across the globe. I've met only one of my 4 uncles and one of my 2 aunties. Most of these people are passed now. I met a handful of my cousins. My family was lucky to survive, but who knows if we'd all stayed closer in Palestine had they not been made refugees. Who knows if we would have been a tight-knit family, if they didn't have to flee for better lives and opportunities for their children. I tell you my story as a reminder that every Palestinian you meet in the diaspora has a Nakba story. Every one of us is the child or the grandchild of a refugee. For so many years, my entire life up to now, which has been quite a few, we won't get into that, no one has wanted to hear our stories. Our voices were silenced. We were invisible. But now you see us. And now they are scrambling to put us back in the box. Look, I'm just a middle-aged soap maker trying to run a little shop in Milford, Pennsylvania. I moved to the Poconos from New York to live a quiet life in the woods. I'm not an activist. Sure, I would go to protests over issues I cared about or when things looked crazy, but if they were convenient and if I had time, I would speak out when I was able about issues as well. But now we've gotten to a point where it's no longer an option. I'm American and I care about the state of this country. And as a Palestinian, I am utterly horrified how my country can support a genocide of my people. I used to be afraid to say I was Palestinian. Now I'm ashamed to say I'm American. Ripping the veil off Palestine has opened our eyes to the interconnectedness of all of us. We can't unsee what we've seen. We can't unknow what we now know. Colonialism, capitalism, corruption, greed. This is all our leaders are about. Regardless of who suffers or the lives ruined, and they are trying desperately to maintain the status quo. We see how our democracy is sliding into fascism. They censor us. They try to ban the platforms we're communicating on. They're building cop cities, and they want to silence any voices of dissent. The shining beacon on the hill that so many fought and died for is taking away our freedoms one by one. It's ignoring international law and disregarding the most basic of human rights as it tears down the foundations and organizations that it once touted as the moral standard of the free world. They tell us there is nothing to see here as we watch mass murder on our phones. They say they are pushing for aid to get into Gaza, or that they are investigating allegations as we see babies starving to death and bodies being bulldozed. They have lost their credibility and have therefore lost our trust. But we are not our leaders. Our leaders should be us. They should reflect our values. We must hold them accountable. And if they refuse to hear us, we will continue to organize, to boycott, call your representatives, protest, disrupt. We will vote out useless leaders and elect officials that stand with us and stand for the principles in which we believe. We will tear down this system and build something better, a system that works for the people, for all people. We need to take back our country, take back our democracy, and take back our humanity. We cannot let all of the lives we've lost be for nothing. Change will take time. It won't happen overnight. The brilliant scholar and activist Ilan Pappé tells us that the Zionist project is in its final phase. It will fail. The way we ensure that this happens faster is to continue to put pressure on our governments until there are so many sanctions and embargoes that the pariah state implodes. We need to remain steadfast, and when one of us falls, we pick them up and we carry them. We can look to Palestine for inspiration. The world has now seen the resistance, the resilience, and the resistance born out of that land. I think most of you have grown to love Palestinians from what we've seen. So I want to leave you with this. Palestine is love and life. It is community and family. It's looking out for one another. Palestine is struggle. I'm sorry. But it is also joy. It's breaking down and it's rebuilding better. Palestine is smiling in the face of your enemy. It's saying, yes, I can, when they tell us, no, you can't. Woo! Yeah! Palestine is faith in something bigger than us. Palestine is hope. Please let us all go forth and be Palestine.
Our next speaker is Sumira of the Islamic Organization of the Southern Tier. Yay, thank you.
Do you hear that too? What is that deafening sound making me lose my sleep? I hear it all around. Is it the drones buzzing and humming? Or the occupation armies drumming? Bombs exploding or mothers imploding? Homes collapsing or lives elapsing? Zionists' schemes and painful screams? Broken bones and shattered dreams? Wounds not crusting, young flesh combusting? Silent tears or tearless cries? Lucid fears in smoky skies? Clunking pots and empty pans? Hollow stomachs and futile plans? Cold, wet nights and long, dark days? Lonely eyes and barren gaze? Bombs or bullets, or starve to death? Pick your poison, hold your breath. Unwavering faith of heart sincere, lifted hands, a heartfelt prayer. What is that blaring noise, thunderous yet muted, dynamic yet rooted, roaring but restrained, superficial or profound? It is the deafening sound of your indifferent silence, of your unintentional alliance that's giving way to violence. Halt it with your hand, be courageous, take a stand. If not, hinder it with your tongue. Sing anthems that should be sung. At least acknowledge in your heart that this brutality is wrong, that your faith is weak and the Palestinians are strong. To Almighty we will return, to Him we all belong, and then He'll make us rise and see through all our lies. Our deeds no longer masked, the toughest questions asked. How did you respond to my call? Did you answer? Did you stall? Did you run to me or even try to crawl? Were you steadfast or did you fall? What then? Will we hang our heads in shame or be able to stand tall? Let's ponder for a bit. Our time is not infinite. We have one life to live. This zeal you have, so give. Let's make our moments count. Persevere so we surmount. Let's not forget to pray. Let's not forget to ask. We have a part to play, our paramount task. Individual liberation is a myth. Our talents we must avail. Entwined we will be strong. Make justice and peace prevail. We cannot free the world if we ourselves are bound. Let's break through all these chains. Let's rattle up the ground. A path we need to take, a choice that should be made, to do what must be done, a struggle that must be won, intentional and by design, an unrelenting fight for a free Palestine.
I want to say something real quick, because if you look across the street, that's how fascism works, right? So if you're a student that go to Binghamton University, that's an issue to sit there and tell people they can't access the building that they paid for. Because we pay for that building. Tuition is expensive. So if you want to go to the library, you should be able to, instead of having to go to look up a schedule to say that you belong in that building. That's bullshit. And that's fascism working for you right there. Like, I don't understand why is it an issue where every person that go to the door have to actually say that they belong in those doors. And show ID. So that already told you it is a shame, and it already tell you about the climate of how fascism work and how they label people that talk about Palestine as terrorism, right? And that ain't fair at all. So if you a student, y'all should talk about that. Send them a fucking email to say that's a shame. Because everybody who paid for the building should have access to that building.
That's right. I'm not feeling really welcomed here, so let's take a walk. Here's what's going on. We're about to take a short march. I promise it's super short. Let's get into the streets. Marshals in position. They don't want us here. They told us there's a concert at 5 o'clock. So fine, now we're in the streets, all right? I'm serious, let's go.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Next speaker, Jim from Veterans for Peace.
I've been here many, many times. We've done a peace vigil here for the past 20 years. We're here for a good 18 of those years every week. We come here to speak to our senators and to our congresspeople, and we find it harder to get in there to talk to them. The last time we talked to the staff of Senator Schumer, whose office is right there, they were closed for the day. What can we do? I'm an Irishman. My great-great-great-grandfather left Ireland because his family was starving to death. They told us through the generations that it was because the blight had ruined the potato crop. It wasn't until many years later, when I was an adult, that I found, no, there was plenty of potatoes being grown, but they were all being shipped overseas by British mercantile companies. 1 week ago today, the Prime Minister of Ireland spoke to President Biden at the White House and said, we see the situation of Palestine through our eyes. We too have been victims of displacement. We Irish had our identity questions being thrown aside. We've been forced to leave. My family did have to leave, because otherwise we would have starved to death. That is why I'm here today, and now I am an anti-colonialist and an anti-imperialist. Before I grew up and learned what was happening in Israel and Palestine, it wasn't until Operation Cast Lead in 2009. And I went there with a delegation, and I found that Palestinians were neither all victims or all terrorists. No, it's several million people who are every bit as vibrant and hopeful and healthy as any other people under oppression. And I am very honored to be with you here today. And the final point that I had to make today is, Amari already said it, we have a resolution in front of Binghamton City Council that we hope that it will be voted on April 10th. And we hope that many of you come to express yourselves there.
Let's show up. April 10th, 6 p.m., City Hall.
Ceasefire now.
Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now.
We know that Israel is thumbing its nose at the World Court of Justice. What we also need to know is that the U.S. is breaking its own laws by sending armaments to units that they know have a probable chance of gross human violations. It is against the law, U.S. law, 6 different ones of them. And we in Veterans for Peace and Peace Action are making sure that State Department employees know that by delivering that letter to them. Ceasefire now!
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
Free! Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Our next speaker is Wanda from the Dissenters.
I'm representing the Binghamton chapter of Dissenters. I've got something to say for y'all. When the need for justice becomes apparent, it becomes an inescapable duty of the people to pursue its realization. As a result, we have gathered here today, united in response to the duly call to realize justice for Palestine. The pursuit of the end to this genocide and the ultimate liberation of the Palestinians is a cause which is palpable to all who stand for the end of imperial violence and the freedom and safety of all colonized people. For months, we have called upon the end of Binghamton University's ties to the Israeli war machine. We have watched the pockets of the school's administration filled with sponsorships from companies invested in technologies of death, cementing that our campus become a Watson to genocide pipeline. The inhumanity to not only idly watch by, but to actively be complicit in financial dealings with war profiteers is a crime that cannot be ignored. A decision to stand against divestment is a decision to stand against justice. However, the pursuit of justice requires the ability to hold people accountable. We are here today not just to condemn the heartless violence that has been inflicted on the Palestinian people, but because to stand in solidarity means to move united in action. We must refuse to let our calls for divestment remain empty words. Instead, we must pinpoint those responsible, those who have chosen to sacrifice countless lives for the sake of their profit. I'm gonna say some names for y'all real quick. Kathleen Ellsworth, Karen Fuhrer, Michael Timoney. These three have two facts in common. The first is that they all belong to the board of directors of the Binghamton University Foundation, the chief financial pillar of the university. The second is that they are all affiliated with companies that are financially complicit in genocide. Kathleen Ellsworth was the managing director of the BlackRock Real Estate Group, which holds a significant amount of shares in Lockheed Martin. Karen Fuhrer is the chief of staff to the president of S&P Global Ratings, which has stood steadfast on Israel's credit despite an added $15 billion to its war budget. Michael Timoney is the senior vice president of Cisco, a company which has developed technology for Israeli occupation and surveillance since 2017. Their financial involvement in the entities that perpetuate the ongoing genocide make them complicit in the deaths of thousands. They've given up morals for greed, decency for wealth, and basic human empathy for business. These people, in the very board that allows them to persist, have traded away the lives of Palestinians in exchange for the pursuit of profit. To that, we say no more. Therefore, we call on Binghamton University and the Binghamton University Foundation to cut all ties, both implicit and explicit, to the actors that are responsible for this needless massacre. It is time that those who have the agency and power to act, to take action. Until they do, we will not be silent. We will not resist. And we will call for an end to our involvement in the killing of innocents. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
I have one more thing to say. Regardless of where you're at in your involvement in this, I urge you all, find a way to get personally involved with this. Any of the myriad of organizations that have stood here and talked today, reach out to them. Reach out to them. Talk to them. Join them. Organize. From the river to the sea.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
Palestine will be free.
All right, we have our last speaker, Jacob, from the Binghamton Solidarity for Palestine Committee. Yeah, Jacob!
So as you heard, my name is Jacob Wisnock, and I'm speaking. And I'm here to talk about the campaign to divest the State University of New York from the illegal occupation of Palestinian land. But I want to table a couple of points first. I want to emphasize first our objective, because we're not just a campaign to end our immediate complicity in the genocidal bombings, the forced starvation, the rapes, kidnappings, and murders of Gazans and Palestinians occurring each passing day as the world bears witness. The organization at Binghamton stands, as should we all, to legitimize Palestinian resistance and to affirm always the inalienable right of a people under occupation to resist. To resist in pursuit of self-determination by whatever means are available to them. This right is enshrined under international law by the Protocol 1 Amendment to the Geneva Conventions and affirmed by subsequent UN General Assembly resolutions in 82 and 83. On principle, we can never condemn resistance against a genocidal occupation which has eviscerated Gazans for more than 20 years and has now transitioned into something even more extreme and brutal. If terrorists are known for one thing, it's blowing up innocent civilians. The evidence is pretty convincing to me, and it should be to you, that the majority of Palestinian casualties bombed by Israel over the past few months are not militants, but children, women, and the elderly. Since the ethnic cleansing of hundreds of Palestinian villages in 1948, in fact, no people has been more consistently terrorized by a foreign occupier than the Palestinians have at the hands of colonial Israel. Yet their suffering is so similar to that of hundreds of colonized peoples in the past 6 centuries who've either fought tooth and nail and won their liberation or been all but exterminated. The UN General Assemblies UN General Assembly resolutions I'm mentioning. Okay. They defend the legitimacy of national liberation struggles, but Palestinians are not the first groups that they mention. Because of their period, 1982 and 1983, actually, they are for mostly resolutions about Namibians and South African nationalists fighting against the brutal apartheid regimes, the white states of Rhodesia and South Africa, at the time, apartheid South Africa. So South Africa and Namibia are mentioned far before Palestinians are even, far before the word Palestinian even appears in the resolution. It seems hard to believe today, but the right of Palestinians to resist is actually used as the precedent case to legitimize Mandela's African National Congress. And now that movement, and of course, the original international BDS campaign against South Africa, are referenced by us to justify what we are doing today. Countless protests against the most heinous crimes, crimes so egregious they demand the complicity of millions and billions of people just to carry them out, have been suppressed with mass arrests, tear gas, and batons. But whatever happens to us, not here, but at subsequent demonstrations, and wherever we go in our home cities, whatever happens at those protests, I want us to all remember that we are being given the same treatment that the United States and all her allies gave the proponents of those African nationalists 40-some years ago. We won then, and we will win now. We will win now, even though our task at hand is more challenging, because the state we target is more valuable to the US, and the ethnic cleansing of its indigenous peoples has advanced to a further stage. Still, we stand here to declare that apartheid and occupation have no place in the 21st century. So as Kenyon mentioned at the beginning of this demonstration, we struck dozens of SUNY campuses today. Practically every major city and every minor city in New York State has had demonstrations. And 3 weeks from now, on April 15th, SUNY BDS has actually called for a statewide convergence in Albany, the capital. Hundreds of millions of New York taxpayer dollars fund the Palestinian genocide annually. And we are going to show up to the state capitol with a one-word demand: no. And until Palestinian liberation comes at last, we will continue to say no. And we will continue to demand the boycott, divestment, and sanctioning of the terrorist regime in Israel, which has bombed 40,000. And as we move from spontaneous consumer boycott to targeted divestment, we can refine our boycott targets, to apply more precise pressure on the real centers of Israeli financial power. Forget McDonald's, forget Starbucks. I'm talking about Hewlett-Packard and Intel. These are the companies we need to boycott. Likewise, when the first economic sanctions hit, we'll have a window to expand our divestment and consumer boycott. BDS is not just a random acronym. It's a sequence. It's a sequential process. And we've done it before, and we've succeeded. And today, I feel like we have a lot of momentum. So we're raising funds for 3 weeks from now. I'm not like asking for money, shit. But but we also need to self-organize into some more numerous carpools. You know, unlike our opposition, we have not the deep pockets to pay students to come to Albany. So we have to depend upon a broad and participatory fundraising effort to deliver a Binghamton contingent. But that drive matches the diverse coalition we've assembled today to speak out for what is decent and right. End the genocide, free Palestine! Free Palestine! And to reiterate, there is a chant I would like to end on. When people are occupied, resistance is justified.
Resistance is justified.
When people are occupied.
When people are occupied.
Resistance is justified.
Resistance is justified.
When people are occupied.
When people are occupied.
Resistance is justified.
Resistance is justified.
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine! We're going to take another short walk. Real quickly, this was the work of 20 organizations, several volunteer groups. If you want to get involved, please get involved. I want to shout out, real quickly, shout out the marshals, the medics, the speakers today. Woo! We do this. This is the work. Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Action. They put out articles against BU. For some reason, this university is always in the national news. That's a good thing. Because recently, keep making that noise. They just arrested 24 students at Cornell, right in Ithaca. It is a shame, but they stood together. That was the first mass arrest in 40 years at Cornell. I promise you all, it's better to have mass arrest than one person arrested, right? Let them do that paperwork, stand in solidarity, don't move, keep making noise. There's going to be risk, there's going to be consequences, but I promise you, the consequences are greater if we stop moving. There were people who said we couldn't do this action and we shouldn't do this action, but we did it. People got that done.
I just want to say something quick. No matter who you are, no matter what background you come from, what religion you are, if you are even an atheist, no matter what your identity has, what you were born into, what you've come out of, just remember, love conquers all. Let's say it 3 times. Love conquers all. Love conquers all. Love conquers all. Love conquers all. So in the end, just know all the pain that we're all witnessing that other people are turning a blind eye to, Love conquers all, and the oppressed will always stand firm and be the winners.
Free! Free Palestine!
Free! Free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
All right, I'm gonna try my best. My voice is a little shot. But you know what? It's a good thing because it's shot for a good cause. At the end of the day, things get done when the people get moving. We're moving right now, and we're moving to get things done. This is democracy at work. This is collective action, because we keep us safe. And as we move, as members of the community, as students of Binghamton University, don't forget what my sister Wanda had said. Those board directors are sitting currently profiting from the deaths of millions. Shame. And we're here right now to demand divestment. Shame. Because Gaza must live. Gaza must live. Gaza must live. Shame. Gaza must live. Gaza must live. Gaza must live. Gaza must live. You all know you're doing something right when you piss off the cops. Know that. No, when government starts trembling and shaking, it's because you're on the right path and you're on the right movement. That's government shaking. This is power in action, people. Let's keep it moving.
Comrades, today we stand together here, but we need to remember all countries are being oppressed. Even here, there's oppressed people who are trapped on the bottom of the social hierarchy. And all nations, all oppressed people must fight for their rights and for their dignity, no matter where they're from. From Palestine to Binghamton and anywhere in this world. Stand together. Be strong. This is a fight for our lives. And it will take our entire lifetime to remove the oppression in this world that have been put in place by the greedy people. But that is all. Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Show me what community looks like!
This is what community looks like!
Show me what community looks like!
This is what community looks like!
Thanks.
All I wanted to do was lead that one chant because it is true that everything that the young man that was just up here, my brother, was saying is if we stay together, they cannot defeat us. They can remove our flyers, but they cannot take Gaza must live out of us. They could kill the revolutionary, but they cannot kill the revolution.
I do want to mention, though, that that's like the 10th banner they stole from us. Fuck them. It don't matter. That's their shit. They think we care about the banners, the flags. It ain't about that. The spirit lives within us. It's not about the fabric. All right, so we're about to go back where we started at the UDC. We're not going to be in the streets. We can take it right on the sidewalk. We're just trying to get everyone back home safely.
Gaza must live!